Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the CyberGizmo, we're going to be looking at Open Media Vault, and we're going to be installing that on a Raspberry Pi 3 right after this. So I've been getting a few questions on the YouTube channel about, hey, can you do a video showing us how to install Open Media Vault on a Raspberry Pi? And okay, so I will do that for you today. Well, at least we'll attempt it. So we'll take a look at that. But before we get started, we really need a couple of things in order to get going here. We'll need either, now, Open Media Vault does support Raspberry Pi 2, but I think you'll find that experience very slow. So I'm not going to recommend that you have use a Raspberry Pi 2. It will work, but I don't think you'll be too happy with the performance. You'll need a Raspberry Pi 3 or 4 in order to do this. Now today I'm going to be using the minimal. I'm going to be using a Raspberry Pi 3. I just want to see if it's possible, see if it will even work. I'll need an SD card, and that is something that looks like that. That's in its carrier. And let me put it out right side up for you. So I'm going to use a Samsung. This is a 32 gigabyte EVO, and you only actually need 8 gig. But I would recommend at least 16 gig, and mainly the reason for that is you just have more space available on the SD card, and that allows Linux to spread the load across the SD card more, and it allows it to wear level better because SD cards do wear out. You'll need a power supply that's rated for whichever Raspberry Pi that you're using, whether it's a 3 or a 4. And one thing I would tell you that if you're considering to put a 3.5-inch drive on here, you will need an external power supply for that, or a case that has its own power supply built in with a USB interface on it. And that's mainly because those drives use 12 volts, and there is no 12 volts on the Raspberry Pi. But a 2.5-inch drive or an SSD should work fine coming off of the USB, taking its power from the USB. Now, if you listen very much on the forums, a lot of people will recommend that you use a powered USB hub. And that just takes the load off the Raspberry Pi and off its power supply and allows that power supply to be used more to work on the Pi. So you might consider that. You'll need a USB to SATA connector. There's a number of them I've seen available. I don't have, there's probably anywhere from $6 up to $12 for those. They come in USB 2 or 3. Of course, the Pi 3 is USB 2, and the Pi 4 is USB 3. So if you want to take advantage of the speed of the USB 3, you'll need a USB 3 to SATA connector to do that. And make sure, also make sure that SATA 3 coming off on the other side so that you get the maximum amount of performance that's possible with your particular drive. Now, I'm not saying that you'll be able to approach what the drive is capable of, because there's overhead that's coming from the Pi itself that's going to slow things down a little bit. Also, the Raspberry Pi shares its bandwidth with the USB hub. So the Pi 3 has a 1 gigabit connector, but it only actually supports 200 megabits per second. And that's because it's using the USB 2 hub. And of course, the Pi 4 has a true 1 gigabit connector, and it is also sharing its bandwidth with the USB 3, which is 5 gigabits per second. So yeah, just remember, you're not going to get full rate if you're connected to a network like a NAS would be if the network is busy. But hopefully the network itself will be our limiting factor. The other thing is we're going to be using Raspbian Lite today in order to install. I don't want a GUI. I don't want the overhead of a GUI. Since I'm going to be putting this on a Raspberry Pi 3, it only has 1 gig of memory to start with, so I'm going to do everything I can to keep that memory free and allow it to be used by the Open Media Vault in order to speed up access to the drive. So I think we've explained everything we need. Let's go over to the Raspberry Foundation's website, and we'll go and download. And that's raspberrypi.org, and we'll go to the downloads. Site's a little slow today. Must be a lot of people. Must be a lot of people on it. I'll be back. Oh, there it comes. Yeah, this site is often heavily used, so I'm going to be, now you could, like I said, you could go with the desktop versions. I'm not going to. I want as little on this machine as possible, so I'm just going to put Buster Light. And this is the February 2020 version, so this is the latest as of the 13th. So I'm going to pause here while this downloads, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's done. So the next step I will want to do here is to bring up Etcher, and I'm going to, I could do DD directly from the command line, and that will work just fine. So I want to go to my downloads folder, find the file I downloaded a few days ago. If it's here, I thought it was. Ah, it's right there. And we'll select the USB flash drive that I want to put this on, and we'll just go ahead and let it get started. And it will ask me for my authorization. So I'll be back. This will take a bit. That's all done. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a sync. And I'm going to, well, I'm just going to pull the drive and put it back in. Pull the SD card. And mount it, because I need to do something here. And it always puts it in, it always mounts to run media. And I want boot. And so I need to do a touch on SSH, and that will create a blank file with nothing in it, just called SSH. Now what that does is that when I put this in the Raspberry Pi and boot it for the first time, it will automatically install the Open SSH server, which we will need in order to be able to get access to that particular machine. So I'm done. So I can let's see, I think it's SDE. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll eject the device. Okay, so it's gone, it's out. So now what I will do is off camera, I'll put it into the Raspberry Pi. Grab my power connector. And I'm going to let it come up. While we're waiting on that, I will go get the DHCP password for the machine here. Okay, so I have my IP address, and so I will go ahead and log in. And the very first time you'll need to use Raspberry as the password, and that'll let you in. So first thing I'm going to do is change the password. Okay, and then the second thing I'm going to do is go ahead and do an update. And I'll be back. I'm going to do an update, an upgrade, and then a restart. So I'll be back. Okay, so I've done the updates, and the next step I will want to do, because this is a server, is I will want to modify my DHCP CD config. Oops. And I've already put in my entries for this, but I took this example right here and just uncommented it. It's ETH0. Now, if you're using Wi-Fi, you would do this a little bit differently. You would put in the Wi-Fi name, but for an Ethernet connection, which is what I'm going to be using, I've set up a static IP address, I've assigned my router, and also my domain name servers. Now you may have yours, all of yours will be different, of course, but those are mine. And then I just simply restarted. Now the next thing I need to do is to make sure I have wget installed, and I do for this. So let me just jump back. Over here, and we'll go to the Open Media Vault page. And this is there. I mean, if you want to see a video where I go through step by step on how to use Open Media Vault, I'll include a link at the end of this video where you can find that. But basically, I need the ISO download, which of course it won't be there, but it'll take me to SourceForge. And right here, it says, well, you know, we've decided we're deprecating this, and so we're going to do it this way now. So, okay, fair enough. Now, this is Raspberry Pi or Armbian supported SBC, so kind of a general purpose script. I tested this earlier with the Ubuntu running on Raspberry Pi, and it does not work, so at least with 1910. So it's going to take you to this web page here, and it'll give you a breakdown on the platforms they do support. So it's either so here you could install it on an Odroid or a Rock64, a Banana Pi, a Nano Pi, whatever you might like is here. But I need to be here, and it says, okay, this is the documentation to follow to do this, but I don't want that. I need the installer script. And so what I did was I just popped out to the Open Media Vault plugin developers. And I'm looking down here for the install script, which is right there. Now I could clone this whole thing, and it has a README in it, but I really need that right there. So let's just see what it's going to do. An awful lot of stuff. Sets up the repositories, sets up permissions, looks at the architecture of the machine, adds the signing keys for the repos that it's going to need to attach to, and then it's going to start adding a bunch of other repos for Open Media Vault. Then it's going to start installing it, installing the Open Media Vault extras. And then it does some checks on flash memory. Looks like it's changing services around. Looks like it does a lot of messing. Okay, so I'm going to set my host name to OMV, and I'll probably just go ahead and log out. There we go. Now I've set up a key for my SSH. You can do this any way you want, but this is the script that I just, it's actually just a script to do this wget, which if you go to, how do you know to do that? Well, if you go here into their documentation page, you'll come down, let's see, supported devices, blah, blah. What are you going to need? There's, oh, yeah, whenever you're downloading a new OS, make sure you're checking the signatures on it. I think I've said that before, probably several times. Probably tired of me saying it. There's the flash that we did. First boot, yada yada. And you can follow this step by step. Do the updates. Okay, so right here where it's on, where it talks about installing OMV, we have a single line installer to do this. So that's what I have here. So I'm going to go ahead. And it's going to get started. I'm going to let this run for a little bit, and then I'll pause the video and we'll come back. It should take about 20 minutes to do this install. Maybe, on a Raspberry Pi 4, I don't know, but a Raspberry Pi 3, it'll take about 20 minutes or so. So be patient. It does a lot of stuff. But anyway, I'll be back. I just want to make sure that it is setting up the repos correctly before we let this go on. Yes, it's installing all kinds of stuff. All right, I'll be back. So while I'm waiting for this to run and finish up, and it is still going, I thought maybe I would tell you a little bit about this. This is the USB 3 to SATA connector, and this particular one is a StarTech.com version of it, which of course they don't make them themselves. I think they just repackage those made by others, by other people. But yeah, it has a USB 3 connector on one side, and it has a SATA connector on the other. The drive I'm going to be using today is a Samsung 840 Evo. This is an older drive. It's pretty slow, but I don't think in this application it'll really be that noticeable. One thing to be careful of is that this connector includes both the power and the data connection. So when you plug this in, be very careful about alignment and getting this correctly seated, because it is easy to break the pins off of these guys. So just a word to the wise, make sure it's going in straight. And then I just kind of wiggle it in until it seats, and that's it. That's all you need to do, and then just plug it into the USB port on the Pi, and it should recognize it. So it's still going, and I'll be back again. Okay, so that's done, and it ended up down here, right here. Recommended to reboot and set up the network adapter in the Open Media Vault in order to continue. Sorry, I'm trying to get my chair locked. All right, so there's one more thing I need to do, which is to sudo add user Pi to the SSH group. If you want to be able to allow a user to log in through SSH, you have to add that user to the SSH group. Otherwise, you'll need to have a keyboard and a monitor in order to be able to do any changes to the system directly from the command line. So I have already done that. So I was just checking to make sure that my Pi is part of the SSH group. And of course, that's the Etsy group table. And yes, it is. So before I reboot this, let's just make sure that we can get in. So I will... And yes, we can. I've set up a key for mine. I don't normally allow passwords in my SSH. You have to have the key in order to be able to access it. So a nice security precaution. So we will go ahead and reboot that, and it's taken off. It's just now stopping. It's rebooting. I'll just ping it until it comes up. That script does make some changes to it, so we should be... I'm not pinging. Why am I not pinging? Did it go back? Did it reset that too? Hang on, I'm gonna go check and see if it went back to DHCP. Yep, it erased my, great. Well, I guess you find out the way I find out. It erased the DHCP cd.config file. So I will need to go into the setup on the network. I guess they want me to do it all in there, so we will do it there. And the password for this is admin open media vault. Correct. We'll make it static. Let's see if it's a comma or a space. Yep. So it really wants you to manage everything from the website, the web page itself. So we will do that and get this set up. Let's see. Okay, sorry about that, but it took a little bit of time to do this. But my network is now set up. I have static set up. I've disabled IPv6, and I have. I'm not seeing unless it's scrolled out here someplace. But I'm going to go take a look at this just to make sure that it did it correctly. Yeah. I guess we'll find out if I can actually do anything with it. But, all right, so I have plugged in the drive. Just checking. I've plugged in the drive. So I think the last time we were in here, first thing I want to do is go down to my users. There we go. The web administrator password. We want to change. And we'll save that. Check the date and time. I'm going to change my time zone. It's probably down here. Yep. It loves to do this, where you have to apply the configuration every time. I'll be back. It takes a while. Okay, so it's done. I want to go ahead and log in. And I'm curious to see how much memory this is actually taking. Not a lot. 180 meg. Now, I don't have any drives set up yet or any services running, so we're going to come back to that. Let's see. Certificates. Yeah, I probably should do that. Let's check updates. If we have any. We shouldn't, because it just downloaded from the repos. You have to have patience with the Pi. It is going to be slow. No updates. Okay, so disks. It's looking for the drives. There is my connection. It says it's a SanDisk, which is, no, that's not it. That's it. SDA. So this is my drive I just connected. And it's identifying itself by the SATA connector, not by the drive. So that's okay. So this one is configured already as an XFS. This has been one of those days. One interruption after another. All right, so I have my drive, and now I need to create a file system for it. So I can have let's do that. And I want this guy. And I just want to mount it because it already, well, maybe not. Maybe I do have to create it. All right, so select the device, SDA. Oh, this is going to actually format it. Revert. I wonder if it's mounted already. Yep, it's already mounted it. So I'm done with that. I need a file system, right? Okay, I have deleted the file system, and I'm just going to create it brand new. And I'll drop down here, and we'll choose the device. I'm going to give this a label that this is for open. And it's giving me Btrfs, ext4, or xfs. I think I'll just use ext4, and it should format it. It looks like it has a ways to go. You have to be patient with the pies. Did I mention that? Okay, so it's mounted, and I think we're ready to go finally. So yeah, we'll just make sure. It looks like it's fine. So now the next thing I would want to do is to enable NFS. But before I do that, I want to actually create a share. And I guess we'll call this and we want this one. Administrator. We'll give everyone read write. And I'm sure it's going to ask me to apply the configuration. Although, why is the RE still here? Oh, it's asking me for other permissions. Back to watching paint dry. So I guess if if you have a lot of patience, OMV on a Raspberry Pi would be fine, but I don't. This is not my cup of tea. I find this process of applying configurations ridiculous and very slow. I'm sure they have good reasons for it, but I don't know what they would be. I would find this faster to just go set it up as an NFS share without the GUI front end. I know a lot of people use Open Media Vault, so I think it works I've tested this on x86 and it's fine. It works okay. On Pi, I think you'll find this frustrating. I'm finding it frustrating. Not sure how it would run on a Raspberry Pi 4. I only have one, and unfortunately it's in production, so I'm not going to take it out and start messing around with it. I have to have it up, so I don't want to take it down. I guess I'll be back. Okay, so it says it's done. I just want to take a look at the exports directory and see what it actually put in there. I don't see anything in there. That's very interesting. So did I get a share or not? NAS2, it says, is actually there. All right, well, let's see if it is actually there. Drum roll. I'm thinking not. It doesn't normally take this long to mount an NFL share. The fact that it wasn't in the export leads me to believe that NFS is not probably going to see this. And so I don't know why it's stalled. It should come back with, I don't know what the hell you're trying to mount, and go away. But it's just kind of sitting there, thinking deeply. I think I see part of the problem with why the interface is so slow. Well, I don't think I need to spend any more time on this. So, yeah, I probably will have to do an update to this video. I just don't have any more time today to mess with it. So I probably will end up posting 2. So look for a part 2, and I'll see if I can work through some of these issues. I'm going to go ahead and post this today. Can I recommend Open Media Vault? No, not on a Raspberry Pi. It works fine on x86. It really does. It still has that painful process of applying the configurations, but it doesn't take near as long. And I have run Open Media Vault even under Docker and also under a VM. And it seems to be just fine as long as it's an x86 platform. Would I recommend this for a Raspberry Pi? No. There are much faster ways of generating a NAS on a Raspberry Pi, and I'll cover that with you in a future video. We'll actually go through and set up a Samba share and set up an NFS share, because in my opinion, graphical user interfaces are nice, but they get in your way and they're slow. That's just my opinion. But hope you enjoyed this. Hope to see you again soon, and bye for now.